Welcome to Between the Covers Summer Series, where we put the spotlight on our South Florida authors. Hi, I'm Ann Bocock, and joining me is performance storyteller and author Caren Schnur Neile. Her new book is featuring Florida, the Sunshine State in fiction, film, and TV. Caren, this is such a fun read. I had a blast reading. It's a celebration of our state of Florida through books, through TV shows, through film. Such an interesting mix. So I expected the classics like Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings. What I guess I didn't expect was some of the contemporary things like Magic Mike. So how did you choose what went into the book, and when did you know how to stop?
It was a nightmare, and I've got to tell you. I thought this was going to be very easy. I thought I would get the classics. I thought I would get, do some research, and I expected in my proposal, I said about 50. And what I found was an avalanche of material back into the 19th century, a little bit, but material that is being written as we speak. And in fact, I missed a few, I have to say. I got in a lot of my favorites and some that were unexpected, but I definitely missed a few.
Anything in particular you missed that you wish you had put in?
Oh, thank you. I missed the most wonderful book, The Magic Kingdom by Russell Banks. He just died a couple of years ago. Wonderful novelist. He wrote several books about South Florida. I don't know what happened to me, but that one is really a classic, and it was his last novel, and I wanted to do a shout out to it.
That we will all look for that.
I think so.
I'd love a bird's eye view of the book. Like, how much research did you do? How long did it take you to put it together?
It took about a year.
I'm surprised that it only took a year.
Well, I got to the point where I was reading a book every 2 days, I'm embarrassed to say. I am also very glad to admit I did not watch every episode of Miami Vice, every episode of CSI Miami. I didn't watch every movie from start to finish, but I read many, many books.
Do you want to name drop a couple of things in the book that maybe we would be surprised that made the cut?
I could not get over how much I enjoyed Where the Boys Are. I thought it would be something I would look at for 2 minutes and take a couple of notes and do a little research on. It's a rather serious movie. It's a serious examination of spring break. And why I wrote this book was not only because I thought there were so many things about Florida out there that people needed to know, but also because each story in some way illuminated an aspect of Florida. And I learned a lot about spring break from researching it for Where the Boys Are.
What I learned were the fun facts that you have at the end of every single entry. Now I'm this wealth of Florida information. Was there any hidden gem or surprise that you found when you were doing your research?
The I Dream of Jeannie cast spent maybe 2 days in Florida. That was the big one.
Even though it's the astronauts, and okay.
The other one shouldn't have surprised me, that Ray-Bans, the sale of Ray-Bans skyrocketed after Miami Vice became a hit. I didn't think the sale of Testarossas would necessarily skyrocket, but Ray-Bans, that was pretty interesting.
There are the adorable TV shows that we remember, Flipper, Golden Girls, but then there are the deeper, more, I guess I'm going to say, painful side of things, like the 2017 film, The Florida Project, which in my opinion, is it's an excellent film, but it's sometimes hard to watch. Give me a comment about that in relation to this book.
I loved that movie, and I agree with you. It was very difficult to watch. And even though Willem Dafoe, I believe he won an Oscar, he was certainly nominated for an Oscar for that, he alone was not sufficient to sell the movie to a lot of the public. So part of why I wanted to include that movie in the book was I wanted people to watch it. Luckily today, we can go back and watch things very easily from a few years ago. It was important to know that right in the shadow of Disney World are people living in these welfare hotels, are people living these sketchy, marginal lives. And I thought, as difficult as it was to watch, it was a masterpiece.
As a storyteller and as an author, how do you see Florida portrayed in fiction, and do you think it's fair?
How much time do we have? The real Florida, just like the real United States, is many, many things, of course. And it differs depending on our point of view, on our perspective. So I think it would be impossible to get a handle on the real Florida other than to say, like many other places, there is a huge diversity. As I found in this book, one of the underlying themes, whether we're talking about nature, whether we're talking about politics, whether we're talking about families, an underlying theme I found is a sense of danger. There is some underlying sense. Now, we like danger, we seek it out, right, as long as we're safe. So that's not a reason to be afraid of these stories. It's not a reason to be afraid of Florida, certainly, as long as we take care. But there is this element of anything can happen. There is this element of whether it is the weather or whether it is human nature. We never quite know that we're on firm footing.
That said, what makes a Florida story a Florida story? It cannot simply be geography.
That's a really good point. Geography is certainly part of it. It's also Florida people, the certain kinds of, whether it is the diversity of ethnicities we have here and backgrounds, whether it is water sports, whether it is flora and fauna. We've got characters, whether they're people or not. We've got characters that are endemic to Florida, right? My last book, Only in Florida, I was supposed to only write true stories, but only write things that could happen only in Florida. So there was a lot of golfing. Of course, golfing takes place other places, but we're the golfing capital, right? There were weather stories. Yeah, there's weather other places, but we're the lightning capital, et cetera, et cetera. So there is this sense of extremity. There is this sense of a frontier. Maybe we're still in some way America's last frontier. There is this sense of people. You know, I write about how with Key Largo, at the time that the movie with Bocock was being filmed, that was considered the end of the earth, right? The criminals went there because nobody could find you in Key Largo. Well, today that's not quite the case. We can be found if we go to Florida, but nevertheless, there's still a sense that we're out there in some way.
Caren, you write in the introduction that there were times you didn't think you'd ever finish writing this book. So for one, I am very glad you did. It's thoroughly entertaining and I so enjoyed it. The title is Featuring Florida, the Sunshine State in Fiction, Film, and TV. Caren Schnur Neile, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time here today.
It was a pleasure, Anne. Thank you.
I'm Anne Bocock. Please join me on the next Between the Covers.